This is Andi Purewal, Boxing Social in association with Betfred. I'm joined by Tony Sims here at Matchroom Gym. Tony, it's always good to see you. How's life going?
Yeah, good, thanks Andy. Good to see you, mate.
Obviously, I've come down today to catch up with yourself and the guys. Big fight next week for Joe Cordina, challenges for his first world title. Kenichi Ogawa, the man in the opposite corner. Just first and foremost, Tony, talk to me about this fight for Joe. How difficult of a test will this be?
Very difficult. Ogawa is a good fighter. We see that against Fusili in his last fight, and he beat the likes of Tevin Farmer, even though that got a no contest after that fight. But you know, he's been in with some really good fighters, you know, and it's a very, very difficult fight. But all world championships are difficult fights, and you know, Cordina's a world level fighter, and he's prepared for this fight, and he's got home. You know, it's in his hometown, so you know he's got that home advantage going for him, and I'm sure all the Welsh fans are going to turn out for him as well. So you know, it's going to be a good fight. It's going to be an hard fight, but it'll be a good fight, and you know, as I say, Joe's prepared for that.
Tony, how do you want Joe to approach this fight for him to be successful? And from what you've seen of Kenichi, how does Joe need to go about it to make sure that his hand is raised by the end of the night?
Well, you know, we know Kenichi Ogawa is a big puncher, so you got to be aware of that. You know, Joe's a smart fighter, though. You know, defensively he's very smart, and Joe's good on the inside as well. So, you know, tactically, there's a fine line between who's going to win this fight. You know, and it might come down to the last couple of rounds of the fight. So, you know, he's got to be physically prepared, which he is. And, you know, it's going to be a rough fight, and it's going to be an hard fight.
Joe falls into that kind of those amateur stars who turned over, and there's always that expectation and pressure on them because of what they achieved to reach world honours. Now is Joe's time. How has he dealt with this camp in comparison to past ones? Does he feel that extra pressure? Does he feel nervous at all? Or is he just looking to thrive in the scenario?
No, you know, he approaches every fight, you know, like it's a world title fight. You know, Joe sacrifices living in Wales with his wife and kids. He sacrifices 12 weeks down here at a time for each fight. So every fight that he takes, you know, he puts 100% into it, and you know, he stays with me. You know, he lives clean, and you know, he's worked hard to get where he is, and this is his big, massive opportunity. You know, Eddie Earns, Matchroom have done really well putting this fight on in Cardiff for him, and you know, he's got to take this opportunity now, and you know, all the hard work, the dedication, the sacrifices that he's put in. You know, he's got to come out on, you know, next Saturday, and he's got to win this world title fight.
I know you won't want to look too far into the future, Tony, but obviously you have a certain potential future pound-for-pound star in Shakur Stevenson, who holds 2 of the world titles in that way. Is it something that Joe's ever thought about, a potential unified bout if he was to be successful against Kenichi further down the line with Shakur?
Well, you can't really look too forward other than fighting Ogawa for the IBF title. You know, this is going to be a difficult night's work. And if Joe does come through that, obviously the star of the division is Shakur Stevenson. But like, as I say, you don't want to look too far forward other than this fight.
Now I think young Conor's just arrived behind us as well. A little late for his training session, but he's kept Tony waiting for him. But Tony, what is the latest with Conor?
Well, he was supposed to fight on July the 9th, but it was a little bit late notice for opponents, so nothing's developed for that show. So he'll probably be fighting in early September, and I'm sure Matchroom are sorting that side of it out. So that's the date we'll probably be working towards now.
I've seen Conor's Instagram posts about wanting the Keith Thurman fight specifically. How highly do you rate the chances that we do see Conor and Keith share the ring next?
Well, they're both ranked highly with the WBO, and as we know, #1 contender for the WBO, Virgil Ortiz Jr. You know, we know that he never made the weight for his last fight and was seriously ill afterwards. So I don't know whether he'll be making welterweight anymore. and the number 2, Jaron Ennis, he's just won eliminator for the IBF title. So that leaves Conor, Benn and Keith Thurman 3 and 4. So maybe the WBO will be making an eliminator for the WBO title with them two, but we'll have to wait and see. But obviously that's that's Matchroom's, that's Eddie Earn's deal to do, not mine.
For you guys, is Keith the man who you'd like to see at the top of the list? Is he the one you'd like to see Conor in with next?
Yeah, I think Conor Benn versus Keith Thurman is a big fight on the world scene, because aside from Spence and Crawford, Thurman's probably the next biggest name. So, if that fight gets made, it gets ordered by the WBO, and then obviously, we'll be in line to take that fight.
Do you feel that's the one which kind of needs to get credit now for how his career is progressing, and for him to be looked at seriously as a world level contender, because obviously his performances against the Van Heerdens, the Chris Algieri's, for as emphatic as what they were, Conor was always kind of a big favourite heading into it, because people kind of questioned what motivation those guys still had left, whereas with Keith Thurman, we know the ability he has. He's said on multiple occasions he wants to come back and challenge for world honours himself. Is that the kind of the breakout fight almost for Conor?
Yeah, I mean, Thurman, as I said, Thurman's next to them two main names. He's probably the third biggest name in the welterweight division. He reigned for a long time as world champion, and but I think like Conor Benn's ready to fight the likes of him now, and if that fight gets made, then we'll obviously take it.
We obviously saw the likes of Jose Ramirez, Adrian Broner, Mikey Garcia, and what have you mentioned previously. Are any of those guys kind of still in the fray as potential foes?
Maybe, as I say, that's Matchroom will make the fights, and but preferably, if the Thurman fight gets made out of all them, then preferably we'll take that fight. As I say, he's the next biggest name apart from the main two, so that's the fight that we'll preferably take.
Obviously, just moving away from Conor onto John Ryder. I saw Eddie's his radio interview with TalkSport, questioning him on it myself. Billy Joe Saunders is coming back, and Eddie put to him a potential John Ryder fight. Would you guys be open to that fight?
Well, yeah, because Eddie told me that he'd had a phone call from Billy Joe a few weeks ago saying Billy Joe wants to return to the ring, and he mentioned that he would like to fight John Ryder to Eddie, so it was him who spoke about that fight. Obviously, John's coming off a big named opponent in Danny Jacobs, so and they had the fight. They boxed like 2013. It was a very, very close fight. So the return fight between Billy Joe and John Ryder over here will be a big fight. I'm sure a lot of people will turn out and want to watch that fight. Obviously, a lot of things have happened in their careers since their first fight, where they was both unbeaten. So it's a good fight. John will be up for taking that fight, and we'll just see what happens there and the development of that.
I know John's got his eyes set on trying to become a world champion at 160. Obviously, Canelo holds all of those titles, but away from that, is it kind of like a Billy Joe fight which will get John's juices flowing almost?
Yeah, exactly. Because like the rest of the super middleweight division, all the top contenders are waiting for that world title fight against Canelo, but he's obviously got other things on his mind. He's got the Triple G fight in September. There was rumours that Canelo was going to come to London in December, and maybe John was the named opponent to fight, but now he's talking about fighting Bivol in a rematch. So you can't really sit around and wait, keep waiting to see what Canelo's doing. If Billy Joe's mentioned that he wants to fight John Ryder, and then John Ryder be up for fighting Billy Joe, and John's on a good run at the moment, and the Billy Joe fight, was a good fight the first time, so the second time it'll be a good fight again.
It was all very preliminary, of course, Tony, but as you mentioned there, Canelo was mentioned as a potential opponent for John come December, or John for Canelo rather, but that all kind of been pushed to the side because of Dimitri Bivol's victory against him, since when you mentioned the trilogy bout, which Canelo seemed to confirm will go ahead in September. But How did kind of John feel about knowing that the bout with Canelo wouldn't actually be on offer at all come December now? You wouldn't imagine it will be.
Well, it was like a dream fight anyway that Canelo may have come to London, but it's like I said to John, until you've actually signed contracts, you know, you can't really dwell too much on that, you know, and you have to dwell what's going on at the moment. And like with John, like if the Canelo fight would have happened, it had obviously been a dream for him, but now he's got to, you know, move on and, you know, think about what he's doing in his next fight and in his career. And you know, I think this Billy Joe Saunders fight's a good fight for him, a good fight for both of them actually, because the victor can then, you know, obviously move on to the next thing, and that may be the Canelo fight next year, so you don't know.
Away from John and obviously onto Felix Cash. How is Felix? What's the latest with him, Tony?
Yeah, Felix is fighting on July the 9th, just waiting for an opponent to be confirmed, but it'll be an international fight. He'll probably be defending his title, and I'm just waiting for Matchroom to get back to us with a named opponent.
I know for Felix you've mentioned previously the European title, Tony. Is that still something which he's looking at, or?
Well, he's been mandatory for that title for a long time now, but the Italian Sigani, he's allowed a voluntary defence, so he's going to defend in June, and then he has to defend against Felix afterwards, which will probably be like December time. But in the meantime, obviously, you know, Felix needs to fight, so we're going to take an international fight July 9th, and then yeah, maybe wait for his mandatory to come up, see what happens after.
And then just away Felix, touch on a couple of other things. Obviously this past weekend we saw a man who trains in this gym, Craig Richards, fall just short in his bout with Joshua Buatsi. It was a great fight. Tony, you was in the corner, but what did you make of it?
Yeah, it was a great fight, you know, it was a great fight for the fans. I felt like Buatsi nicked all the early rounds, and then Craig come on, you know, later on, he come on strong later on, but it was a close fight. I felt like Buatsi just nicked it, you know, from that early work in the early rounds. But I think a return fight would be great, you know, and you know, if Buatsi does get his crack at the world title, because that was obviously eliminator, then maybe a defence against Craig would be a great fight. I'm sure everyone will turn out to watch the rematch of that fight again. It was one of them fights that puts you on the edge of the seats, and they both was a credit to the work that they'd obviously done in the gym, and both a credit to themselves, the fight they put up that night.
I mean, Virgil Hunter in the post-fight press conference did mention he'd like to see Josh face one more guy before challenging for world honours. Not that he wouldn't be happy to see him go in his next fight for a world title, but how realistic do you feel it might be that we do see a potential rematch there?
I think it's a realistic, you know, scenario, because when you look at the other light heavyweights in that division, like Yard's obviously doing his own agenda, I don't know what he's doing, and then you've got like Lyndon Arthur, I don't know what he's doing, and Callum Johnson. So them two seem to be the only two that really want to face each other. So he's realistic, but whether Virgil Hunter would want to go have a rematch with Craig before, because it's a risky fight, you know. It was a very, very close fight, and you know, whether he'd want to do the rematch with Craig before he gets his world title shot, I don't know. But yeah, the rematch would be a good fight between them both.
Tony, I just want to get your thoughts on Anthony Joshua as well, somebody you've worked alongside previously. He's obviously getting ready for that Alexander Usyk rematch. We're still waiting for official confirmation on a date and what have you and location, but he's decided to make Angel Fernandez his head trainer, somebody who was a part of his camp previously. What were your thoughts when you heard that news, and how are you expecting him to change his approach heading into this rematch?
Yeah, obviously, like everyone else, I was surprised about that. I don't know Angel, but he's not an experienced trainer, so you know, I have heard though he's bringing in Anthony's bringing an experienced trainer to work alongside him, so I would expect him to do that, because the actual fight that he's going into, you know, is obviously the biggest fight of his career, and like, you know, he suffered a bad loss to Usyk, which he needs to put right, which he is capable of. but he definitely needs experience in the camp, and you need world level experience going into them fights, and he knows that anyway. So I would expect him to name an experienced trainer to work alongside Angel.
Is Tyson Fury retired?
I think probably in his mind he has retired, but he will have the thoughts of watching once he's watched Joshua Usyk return. I think he will have the thoughts, and obviously the offer to fight the victor of them two, and I don't see him not taking them for that fight, but probably in his mind, because he's been boxing a long time, and he's had a lot of hard fights as well, and the sort of makeup of Tyson Fury physically, it must be hard work getting himself into condition all the time. But I think he would do that last fight, and I hope he does, because I think we would all like to see him fight the winner of Joshua Usyk.
Right, Tony, we'll leave that there then. I'll leave you to get back to training Conor ahead of whenever his announcement will be. But I appreciate your time now. Thanks for speaking to me in Boxing Social.
Thanks for coming down, Andy. Nice one seeing you, mate.